Hello, friends, and welcome to another Team Titleist Talks. I'm Josh Talge. I'll be your host today. We've got a great panel of guests. Marni Ines is here. Marni heads up our iron development team at Titleist. We're also joined by Chris Baingo. Baingo is currently one of our next-gen fitters. Baingo, you've worked across all levels of fitting, started in the field, eventually came here to be one of our consumer fitters at TPI, and now you're working with kind of that next generation, those future pros, whether they be in college or in high school. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
All right. Marni, you're fresh off a trip to Japan.
Yes.
So no jet lag today, buddy. You gotta stay focused.
We'll try our best.
First thing I'd love to hear from both of you, we're going to talk a lot about the new Titleist T-Series irons. This is our 4th generation. And I want to get this kicked off with what's in your bag. So Marni, let's go through your bag.
Yeah. So irons wise, we start off with the base core part of my set is the T100. Okay. So 6 through P. And then I move into the T150 in the 5 and the 4 iron. And then the top of my set fluctuates between a T250 and a U505 3 iron.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quite a few. I appreciate that you are unwilling to put any metal woods in the top end of your bag. Very on point for the Iron Man.
Yes. I mean, I can't say there's absolutely none. I mean, there's no hybrids, but there is a high lofted
Not that
fairway.
there's anything wrong with hybrids.
Right. There's nothing wrong with hybrids. There's some people that love them, right? But I do have a high lofted fairway. So as a 5 wood.
Great. Well, run us through the rest of your bag.
Yeah. So the 5 wood is an 18 degree GT3.
Great.
And then I have a 13.5 degree GT2. And then my driver is now a GT3 10 degree GT3.
Great. I realize that you're so precise with your iron play, you may not use them often, but do we have any wedges in the bag?
We do. We have 2 wedges. We have a 60 degree.
2. I love it.
We have a
Great job.
60 degree A wedge, and we have a 54 degree S grind.
Yeah, 5410S.
5410S.
Very popular.
Yes.
Great. Baingo, how about your bag? What are we looking at? We might as well start with irons. This is an irons podcast.
Yeah, so big change for me this year. Last year I was 8 through wedge MB, 6-7 CB, 4-5 T100, and then a 3 iron U505.
Wow.
Talk about blended set.
I just wanted to be like you. I wanted to have a little bit of everything in each iron.
Good job.
But this year it's 4 iron through pitching wedge T100.
Oh, good. Because our next segment is going to be all about blending sets. So you really walked us into that one. Good job, lead fitter.
I think with a lot of the changes in the 4 iron, it's been really easy for me to not blend there. I still do have a 3 iron U505, which I like even more this year. You know, some of the size stuff we'll get into. And then I do have a hybrid. Sorry, don't get mad at me.
You have a hybrid.
But I don't play it all the time. I would say the 3 irons in my bag 70% of the time. But every once in a while, I'll put in that hybrid if I have those longer courses, long par 3s. And then I go into a GT1 Tour 3-wood.
I love that.
Which I really like. This is kind of the first 3-wood I've had that I can launch with keeping the spin down. And then my driver's a GT3 10 degree this year. And then my wedges, 60 degree L, 5614 F.
Love that.
And then a 5212 F bent to 51.
Fantastic.
Tell me a little bit more about this hybrid you need that, you know, for someone who is as long as you still need something longer than a 3 iron.
So honestly, they both carry about 250, 245 for me. It just, the hybrid just gets up maybe 10, 15 feet higher. Again, I had Nick Geyer, another fitter of ours, kind of look through my bag, and I did have a kid 3 weeks ago, so I feel like I've lost a little bit of speed just in 3 weeks.
Give me a break.
So honestly, the hybrid, it was in my bag 20% of the time. But that was kind of before I got to test this new 505. So there's strong possibility this 505 takes over, as long as my fitter allows it, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. Shout out to all those dads out there who might need a little help on the top end of their bag.
Right. Yeah. When you're sleep deprived, you're jet lagged, I'm sleep deprived. Sometimes that hybrid just gets up a little bit.
Okay.
Love to hear it. You guys, do you putt? Neither one of you mentioned a putter.
Yes.
Mine are gimmies most of the time. No, I'm just kidding. I have the Scotty Cameron 5.2.
Great.
Big fan of the plumber's neck. Something that's been popular on tour, and, you know, been nice being able to be in production now. So
yeah, really popular in the marketplace.
And mine's the short slant neck square back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of the new the Studio Select. Studio Style.
It's not the latest one yet.
Okay.
I still have to, find a friend there and get one for myself.
I think a guy. We'll work on that.
I think we want to hear what's in your bag now.
Oh, my bag.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just do we go irons first?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So I do T100 8 and 9, and then I go T150 7, 6, 5. I bend those 1 week. And then I have what I lovingly refer to as a 3.5 iron. So it is a T250 3 iron. On the sole, it's marked at that. Bent to 4 iron loft, but then it has the 3 iron length of that hybrid shaft in there. And that helps get me into, as Baingo, you're a pro at this, the idea of how do we hit those 3Ds, which we'll talk about here in a minute, with the 5 mile an hour ball speed gaps. That gives me the gapping that I need over the 5 iron.
Love it.
And then I go from that to a 5 wood that's kind of set up like a 4 wood. So it's an 18 degree GT2, but cranked down a little bit in loft. And then I go mini driver, GT280. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
It's just, I have so much fun with that club. And then GT2 10 degree. And then on the opposite end of my bag, I put plenty of, so where you guys didn't have as many Vokey wedges, I've got a plethora of Vokey wedges. I'm actually testing out, we've got a Wedgeworks edition 44 degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using that. And I have that bent to 45. I've got a 48 10F.
Mm-hmm.
And I bend that to 49, 54 12D. Because I like to have one of my options have some bounce.
Yep.
And then I do a grind in a 60. And then I am putting, much like you, Baingo, with a 5.2.
Yeah.
I really like that as well. The plumber's neck helps me get aligned to my target. And the team at Scotty have just done an amazing job.
Yeah.
So that's my bag.
Cool.
One of the things that I think is so unique, Marni, is at Titleist, we have this 2-year product life cycle. It gives your team a chance to really be thinking and learning as they move forward with iron design. We're in our 4th gen with T-Series. I think it's pretty commonplace for people to kind of wonder what's new, or are they just kind of small iterations? But as you were just talking, Baingo, you mentioned that you had a total set change as you moved to 4th gen. Marni, what goes into designing a new generation of irons?
Well, a lot of it can be, starts with feedback from tour, right? So what's the need, right? What's driving the goals for the new iron? It also can be new materials showing up or new processes, a new technology that shows up, right? And trying to work that into a new model as well. Iron goals year to year don't change a ton in terms of the basic core goals, right? We want to provide long irons that launch high. We want to provide consistent carry distance in each loft, right? And now with this new series of irons, we've also included trying to get more consistent spin from rough and wet conditions as well. So these types of things, that's not all of them, but those are a few of the things that can drive your new design.
Well, I think one of the reasons we've got you both here is I'm so impressed, Marni, when the team is working on new designs, they're really thinking of it not just on a product performance, but also from a fitting standpoint.
Absolutely.
Getting the right feedback. And you mentioned consistent carry distance. And that brings me back to this idea that your team has had around what are the 3Ds? And they're the 3Ds of iron performance, and they're the 3Ds of fitting. So, Baingo, since we just heard from Marni, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Do it.
What are the 3Ds of iron performance?
Yeah, so we have distance, dispersion, and descent, right? And I think descent is probably the most important, at least as a fitter for me. Like, I want to make sure that their club stops when the ball hits the green.
Well, let's talk about descent. What is descent?
Yeah, so descent, fancy term, it's just the angle that the ball comes into the earth. I like to say it that way. The steeper the angle, the quicker the ball is going to stop. And it's really key, like hitting to uphill greens, being able to have a steep descent angle to hit, maybe in that front quadrant of a green. You really need to have something, I think north of 45 to really make it stop. But I think something that gets lost in the fitting world is not everyone can achieve 45 if you have slower club head speed. So the idea is just to get better, right? Just wherever you're at, let's just get it a little bit higher so that ball stops quicker and more predictable and consistent. And I think that's where Marni's team has done such a great job of making these irons across the face launch high and land in a really similar descent, whether we miss it or strike it good.
Well, and Marni, let's talk about that, because irons they're a scoring club. They are made to do a specific purpose, which is you're shooting a number, you want that ball to land there. And as you were just saying, Baingo, to stop. So,
right. So
if you could just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, like descent, I would say it goes hand in hand with distance, the first D, right? Distance really is describing your target, right? Everybody has hopefully 7, 8 irons, maybe more in their bag. And each one is designed to go very specific distance. And when you have irons in your bag, you want each one to go that number that you know to be the carry distance for that particular loft. And so I would describe distance as like, focusing on your target. It's like about accuracy there versus like dispersion. Now, if you switch to that, that's more like about precision, right? Because you can be very precise, but not accurate. You'd be off target, right? So you could have, you could hit your number of 218, say, but you're going to be 5 yards off to the right and very tightly grouped 5 yards off to the right versus that first D, talking about that distance, really talking about trying to be accurate in terms of hitting that target, right? And dispersion is more about bringing that cloud of shots closer together.
Marni, I hear, and we obviously, when we talk about like the driver category, we talk about distance, but in a different way than we do for irons. When you talk about distance in irons, or Baingo, when you're fitting irons, what are we talking from a distance standpoint?
So for me, I talk about, east and west, but also I think more importantly, it's north and south.
Theory, right?
Yeah. Right. So, I always joke on the fitting tee, like my job as the fitter is what I call horizontally, which if you look at a TrackMan plot, I'm thinking about like the north and the south. Mm-hmm. The player's job, a lot of it's east and west, along with the fitter, but there's only so much a fitter can do east and west. I think the fitter has more control over north and south, which is the consistent carry number, and why I think our product is so good, because the north and south is good. I always joke like pin high is usually pretty good on most golf courses. Like where they put trouble, if you look at a golf course, like short left, short right, long left, long right, pin high for most courses is usually okay. And I think that's the most important part of fitting is how do I make that horizontal line, the north-south line, as narrow as I can.
Well, Marni, let's punch in on that. I love it. Baingo, great answer. Marni, how did we make some design changes to do that? How did we, consistency was a word that Chris said earlier. How does your team push in on that and make this as part of this new line?
Yeah, there's a few levers that we can use, right? So we can use center of gravity location, right? 2, we can use moment of inertia as well. 3, we can use face design. 4, we can also use grooves as well to get more consistent distance from different conditions, right? So I'd say those are the 4 main ones that we can use that drive us to be able to get more consistent carry distance across the face of each loft.
For either one of you, one of the terms we hear a lot with iron play when we talk to our consumers, and thanks again to Team Titleist for sending in so many great questions. A lot of questions have to deal with which one's the most forgiving, or how do I pick the iron that's right for me, because forgiveness is really important. So Baingo, I'll start with you. You see so many players at different levels. How do you help someone understand what does forgiveness look like?
I think going through a fitting is, the easiest way to do it, but something I've always told them, because a lot of consumers come in, they have an idea like I'm a 350 player, I'm a 250 player, I'm a 150 player. And I think, when you pigeonhole yourself into one model, you could be leaving performance on the table. And I always say that the most forgiving club we make is the one you hit the best. I think there's sometimes there's things you do in your swing that don't always mean that you need the biggest chassis in a T350. So I think going through a fitting and understanding and honestly, we keep harping on the 3Ds, but if you follow the 3Ds, it will lead you to the right spot. It will lead you to the right club. So I think going through a fitting, it's good to do research before you're fitting to understand what we do, but don't go in there saying I want to get fit for T350 or I want to get fit for T250. Go in there with that and pick the club that helps you shoot the lowest score. This game's hard.
Oh, I love that answer.
Yeah, and I think having a good fitting helps a lot. There are a few things that we can do on the design side that might help as well, but it depends on what you want in terms of forgiveness, right? So there could be forgiveness, say, of your start line, or there could be forgiveness of launch, right? Or forgiveness to hit a particular distance, right? So it's easier to hit far, or it's easier to hit high, or maybe it's easier to hit left and not hit it right? Yeah. And there's different things that we can do to give those different facets of forgiveness to golfers.
Yeah, I think setting a ball flight goal before you're fitting, rather than setting a club goal that you want to get fit into, like he said, like, I want to change my start line. Like, that's my biggest problem. I want to change my height. Like, give a fitter that goal, and then we'll use the tools to help you achieve that goal.
Fantastic. Marni, you mentioned the word consistency. What does this new lineup do from a consistency standpoint that's better than anything we've ever made?
Well, there's a couple of things, right? So especially, let's start with long iron consistency, right? And consistency, I'm always talking about carry distance consistency, really, right? And that spawns from the consistency of all your launch parameters, right? That's ball speed, launch angle, backspin. So first and foremost, you got to place the center of gravity in a spot that gives you the most consistent performance. So in our latest long irons, we're able to drive the center of gravities even lower into a more optimized spot to help get proper launch, ball speed, and backspin to be able to get that higher peak height that we're looking for. On top of that, face insert designs. So we pushed our face insert designs even farther in the 250, 350, T250U and U505 products as well. So by changing the thickness profile of the face designs, that's both in the lower half of the face insert, because we have what's called an L face insert, as well as the upper half, different zones on the heel and toe versus center. We can really tailor performance to be more consistent across the face by changing these different areas and changing the thicknesses to our advantage. On top of that, also moment of inertia. So using that high density tungsten that we have in the heel and toe to make the club head more stable, right? So stability, added stability in a club head is always going to result in more consistent performance. So
what do you mean by more stability or added stability?
So that means, like, if you say increase the heel toe MOI of a golf club, it's going to resist the twisting of that golf club about the vertical axis through the center face. So it's not going to twist as open or as shut, to make it simpler. And that will then allow the club head to return more energy to the golf ball, which then gives you more consistent distance on that off-center shot.
Now we're talking, Marni.
I have a question for you though, like, because I've been fitting this product and it's clearly launching higher in the long irons. So when you talk about how you drove CG down in the long irons, like,
yes,
can you explain, like, how did you do that?
Yeah,
that's been great.
So that's essentially in a long iron. Yeah. So we have, say, let's take T100, for example, right? It's got the upper cavity. So does T150. There's weight that we could remove from that upper cavity further to help give us more weight to put in the tungsten down low. Also on the heel toe areas of that lower face, as well as the muscle channel that we put into the 3 and 4 iron, also frees up weight for us to put down low. So really we're reshaping, we're finding discretionary weight in areas of the club head that are higher, and then repositioning that weight into tungsten weighting down low.
Yeah, it's been great.
Marni, what you just described doesn't sound easy. You happen to be talking about T100 or 150. T250 sounds even more complicated. If you could help Chris and I understand, like, how do you make something so complicated but look so clean?
Yeah, that there's a story, and I wish we could take all the credit for it on the iron team, but our innovation team is the one that came up with a way to basically install our max impact technology into a head and finish it like it looks now, right? It basically looks like a muscle back. And they brought that to us and said, hey, we've figured this out. And when we saw that head, we were like, okay, this is the home run of looks and all the technology that we've been looking for. So we really felt like we had to pursue this in this generation of irons. So essentially, there's a methodology to create a club head which in its early stages has an opening for us to insert this polymer core, which we then have to manage through several, high heat processes, which part of is welding that hole shut and not causing any damage to the internal components that are in there, especially the polymer core, right? Because you can melt that thing if you put too much heat into it, or you could change its properties so significantly that it doesn't feel or sound the same, right? So these processes that we've developed took some time to get consistent so that we had consistent properties in that core piece when all is said and done. And the head, when it's finished, looks as if there were never any holes or anything on the outside.
I think it's great how you've kind of, it doesn't look like there's a hole in it, and you've gotten rid of that badge on the back, right? And it still amazes me how, when I saw it without the badge, I'm like, well, it still can't have max impact. And then you explained that it does still have.
You're right, because underneath that badge, there was a nice big opening for you to just put it in and cover it as the last step.
Yeah.
Right. But this is covering that opening now is it's still the last step, but it requires welding. And then we still have to do some heat treatment of the club head after that as well.
Marni, I might be dating myself here, but is it a little bit like the ship in the bottle? Is that how you do this?
Sure. I mean, if you think about it, that concept of like looking at this package of a bottle and seeing something inside that you have to wonder how it got in there. So this is more extreme to me in that at least the bottle has an opening where maybe you might have thought like we could compress this whole thing, shove it in, and then it expands back out. But the heads that we have now, the hollow constructions, there's no opening at all, right? And there's all this great stuff on the inside, tungsten weighting and the polymer core and everything else.
When you both brought up max impact and how important it is in the T250 and the 350, our good friend, Dr. Chuck Golden, loves to talk about max impact as a trampoline inside of another trampoline. Marni, what is he talking about when he says that?
Well, it's like the max impact core has a level of flexibility to it, rebound to it, right? The face also has a level of flex and rebound to it. And these two used in concert, along with the design of the face insert, right? So the thickness profiles that we have across the forged L face allow us to get that optimized performance across each of those areas, heel, toe, low, and high, all together.
One of the things, Marni, that I've noticed in some of our early fits is the consistency out of all conditions, but most notably hitting, whether it's off a tee, off fairway, or most importantly, in the rough, is where these irons seem to be really shining. Chris, are you seeing anything like that?
Yeah, it's been, no offense, Marni, but when I heard that we were going to get more consistent spin out of the rough, I was, before I saw it, I was kind of like, yeah, well, that can't be true. Like, how does that happen? And we took a 7, 8, 9 against old gen, and we're hitting it out of the rough during a fitting. And as much as, third gen, granted these irons were worn and this player had them for 2 years, but out of the rough, he was losing almost 1,000 spin. He was 65 down to 55 out of the rough. And then
and what does that look like, Baingo? So for those that don't speak, and I know you guys are so close to it, you speak TrackManese really well, but if anyone's listening to this and they're just kind of wondering, like, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's coming out low or knuckly, or that it's flying the green? What do you see?
Yeah, so it's that one that doesn't look like it's under control, right? So it's that ball that's kind of shaking left and right. Generally, it's going to go long. It feels really hot off the face. I think some golfers think, oh, I just crushed that one, but in reality, it's just because you're getting debris in the groove and the ball's just going, and it's really hard to control, right? And then with the new irons, you see that ball kind of perform like it did out of the fairway, where it kind of has a gentle peak and a rise and a fall, and it goes a controlled distance. I don't think people realize like how much spin controls distance, right? It's such an important part of distance is consistent spin. And back to that player, when he put 4G in his hand, he lost 300 spin only out of the rough.
Wow.
And like, I don't know if you can put a number on it.
So his ball flight really looked the same.
The same. And you saw his face, you saw my face. Like, I kind of was like, oh man, Marni was right here. Like, it was that impressive. And it's been that way too. And then back to like the launch of the long irons. I mean, that's just, it's never been the case where R&D says it's going to happen, and it's happening probably more than R&D thought in this set of irons.
Well, and it was brought to our attention again. First, we have some specific tour players who are always looking at numbers, right? And so this was brought to us. I think Liam was one of the first working with a couple players on DP World Tour, where he said, "Hey, is it possible for us to get some more spin out of short irons?" And that's when we started to take a look at different grooves. And so, I mean, that's really how all of this was born. And it was really designed for this first cut of rough condition, where you're looking at the lie, and it's kind of questionable as to whether or not you're going to be able to get spin on that ball or not. And now this just gives the player more confidence from those conditions that he is going to get the spin.
I think some players find when they're in the rough now, you almost feel like you have to swing softer to avoid the jumper. So you're really changing your swing to make a club work. And then with these new irons, I just think, the more you can swing your swing, the easier the game's going to be.
Yeah. And then in this line of irons also as well, especially in the long and in the mid irons, we've been designing these faces to help consistency between that turf shot and that higher up on the face shot more towards the center of the club face, where you're typically going to get more ball speed on that shot as well, right? Which can result in you being long. So with all these new face designs that we've done, we're managing that higher part of the face to bring it closer to that turf shot, which is more consistent.
Marni, as we think about the number of models that we have in T-Series, you've got T100, T150, T250, a couple variants of it, including a utility and our launch spec, and T350, and then throw in another U505, which you both mentioned you have in your bag. Why do we have so many models?
There's different players, right? So different players gravitate towards different things. Some gravitate towards distance difference. So I want to hit my irons a little bit farther. Some gravitate towards shape, size, offset, look from address, and then obviously in the hands of a great fitter, performance can drive, the different needs depending on a player's attack angle, swing speed, et cetera, et cetera. So there's plenty of reasons to have multiple
I love
models.
Bring more. Having all these tools just lets me fit everyone. Honestly, the more tools in my toolbox, I feel like I can create ball flight. I can address what the player's goals are. I just think, I know we have probably the most irons we ever had, and I'm always to the ones I'll take a couple more if there's performance benefit, right? The more tools you give a fitter, the easier it makes my job. Don't tell anyone, Marni, but Marni's making my job easy with all these really, really great tools.
Yeah, having those options is really key. And I think it dovetails nicely into this idea of blended sets.
Yes.
When we talk to the best players in the world, Marni, we happened to be together out at Colonial, saw over 40 players that were playing Titleist irons, and every one of them had a blended set.
Yep.
Baingo, as we start to look for consumers, we almost see the opposite. Only about 20% have a blended set. How important is it, Marni, from a design standpoint to allow for blending? And Baingo, how important is it to help golfers play their best by moving to a blended set?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a blended set. And I think the biggest misconception for consumers is that, they think their 4-iron, their 5-iron, and their 7-iron should go different heights, right? They always have this notion that my 4-iron goes here, my 7-iron goes here. When in reality, that's a poorly fit set, right? Because every club should go the same height. And I think that's something where if a consumer were to ask himself, does my 4-iron go as high as my 7-iron? I would say, 80% of them say no. And the funny stat is 80% of them aren't playing blended sets when we talk to consumers. So it's really funny. If you've been well fit through Titleist, I think that's the 20%, the guys playing blended sets. I think another product of this is how that 80%'s been fit in the past. My fitting started way back when at a box store, right? This was a long time ago. And we fit a 7-iron. And we probably spent an hour fitting a 7-iron. And then we sold that player 6 or 7 clubs he never hit.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a good fitter that long ago, right?
Yeah.
And then now I realize
Well, that's the tools available at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we've moved way beyond that, where at all of those locations, we actually have long iron packs, and we want to figure out how do we get you into the right product.
Yeah, and it's hard to blend without hitting it, right? You have to be able to test the product and tweak what you need to tweak. And with all the tools now, it's very rare that I can't tell you the last set I haven't really blended. I mean, it's very, very rare.
Yeah. And, I do think it's kind of silly that you have 80% of the players on the PGA Tour, and then your average consumer is somewhat reluctant to like have different models of irons in their bag. It's changing though, right? And we're a big part of changing that idea. And the thing is, I like to ask people, it's like, well, you're willing to change from an iron to this hybrid or this high lofted fairway to get better performance. Why wouldn't you change to another model of iron, right? It's just another club that can be used to your advantage.
Well, I think this year is going to be, it is the easiest it's ever been because of the way they look.
Sure.
Like they're so much more seamless now. Like it's such an easy blend going from 5-iron, let's say 250 to 350. When in the past, the 350, maybe with the open cavity or the different colors in the past generations, like this year now, it's like, it'd be hard to tell that they're really different.
Yep. Yeah. The industrial design team did a great job of just giving that consistent look in the bag for all the products.
On that front, Marni, on the shape and the visual identity of the product, how much effort goes into that?
Oh,
hear that?
Some
noise?
of my teammates might say too much, but
yeah, it was a good grunt that you put in there.
It's a lot, right? It's a lot because there's always this healthy tension amongst a good design group. So between R&D and the artists, right? There's this battle to get all the, what I call the light catchers, right? There's all these little features and edges that the artists want on the product versus really holding true to your R&D performance goals, right? So these are in tension, but we always, come together to work out, make compromises to come up with the best solution for both. And I think this line more so than ever, we've seen, a really good result of that collaboration.
Well, and I think these products are so beautiful, Marni, that it may even edge us back into this common misconception that we hear, which is Titleist is only for the better player. What would you tell someone that has that belief?
I'd say that's absolutely not true. We make products for every player, right? And you need to just go find a place where you can try the products out and you'll find out what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is 100% false what that saying has been. I mean, we make so many good irons for all types of players, for all types of ball flight. I just think to not try our irons is you're really missing out on shooting lower scores, to be honest.
Marni, is there any truth to the idea that for every size and shape we have, we actually are the leader in forgiveness?
With the amounts of high density tungsten that we use, right? Especially for, if you're talking about MOY versus blade length, that sort of thing, we are able to use more tungsten in the heel and toe than our competitors, right? And as a percentage of the overall club head mass, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of the patents, but we have protected using high amounts of tungsten weighting in the heel and toe, which allow us to have a competitive advantage in terms of MOI coupled with, center of gravity location.
I have a question about that though. Like, you always hear the most forgiving, like, how do we measure forgiveness? Because I imagine it's a tough measurement, right?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, right? There's different aspects of forgiveness, which could be measured through MOI, which could be measured through launch angle, right? And how easy is it to get the ball up in the air, right? So I always say a club can be more forgiving in launch, right? If someone is looking to be able to get the ball up in the air, an iron like T350 could be that for them, right? Especially if they have some club head speed. But if you're looking for more off-center hits and forgiveness there, then you might look at MOI as well, right?
Chris, you just mentioned, how do you measure forgiveness? I think there's another word that starts with F that's just as critical to iron play, and that's feel. Marni, how do you design to feel. You're balancing all these things that Chris just talked about, the 3Ds of iron's performance, 5-mile-an-hour ball speed gaps, the shaping you just talked about with the teams. And at the same point, feel seems to be exceptionally important to players.
So let's start with the easier ones, which result from clubhead stability, right? So everybody talks about feel. Well, let's talk about actually what you feel in your hands when you impact the golf ball, right? So on an off-center shot, especially if that club head is resisting twisting, you're not going to feel that twisting in your hands. That's a result of a better feeling shot, right? On top of that, now, if you move more into the sound acoustic part of feel, because there's also this part of what you hear that hits that center of in your brain of like, this feels better, right? And engineering that into a club head is much more complex. So that's it involves materials, construction, and then just kind of like being able to do some measurements and analysis early on of those constructions, simulation in a computer of what that's going to give you, right? And then beyond that, you make your prototypes, and then you do sound recordings, see how those correlate versus your models and your simulations, and then you do it over and over and over again until when you do your player testing with tour players especially, and they say, this feels great, then you know you're done.
Oh, I love that. A little bit of science turned into an emotional aspect.
Sure.
How would you describe how the feel compares with this generation versus products in the past? We've certainly got a lot of questions about 250 and 350 because they look so radically different.
Yeah, I think that the new face designs in the 100 and the 150, we're getting across the board, seems to be better feeling in those products, hands down. 250 as well, with the new construction, with the elimination of the polymer muscle on the back. That's allowed us to make some changes acoustically there, especially, that have driven us into a preferred feel area. And similarly for 350 and 505 as well. Same reasons. We eliminated the polymer muscle, replaced it with the steel back, and included more tungsten and a different face design. And all these add up to a better feeling product.
Marni, you and your team also led the development of our concept irons. Are there elements of concept irons that you feel like you've brought forward into a product like a T250?
Sure. I mean, all the process that you study through developing irons like the CNCPT line push your suppliers further, right? So, the welding methodologies, the face insert, the score line machining, just trying to make all of these different aspects of your club head manufacturing more consistent come through these types of projects, right? And you're also able to use new materials which push your vendors farther in their welding capabilities, their abilities to machine and create these new designs that we come up with every generation.
I mean, that's kind of a question I had earlier too. You designed over 100 sets of irons, right, for Titleist. Is there an iron out of those 100 that, was it revolutionary, or do you go back to it? Is it like, what did you get the most from? Is there a particular iron that?
Well, Josh alluded to the concept line, right? So by having that, by being given that opportunity to use new materials, to change the construction in a radical way. So we did with the CP01 and the CP04 model, right? That construction was a new construction for us. It was a forged face hosel. It was a new material. We also drove ourselves in all these products to a new cosmetic as well. So the cosmetics were still to this day, I'd say, processes that would be challenging to put into a mainline product. But we did it, and we learned from that. Yeah. And some of those learnings, especially with the detailed machining, have made their way into products like, the T100, T150, and things like that. So,
Marni, I mentioned our good friend, Dr. Chuck Golden, earlier. He refers to this new T250 as concept on steroids. What's he talking about?
Well, I mean, it's the concept line. If you think about it, well, actually, let me step back. The max impact technology was actually slated to be the next concept iron.
Mm-hmm.
But it was deemed so revolutionary that we pulled it forward into that first T-Series line, right? So we pulled that in and said, hey, we need to use this technology now. So between that, and I think, and just the fact that the T250 in terms of looks and performance, that balance, I think of that marriage in concept as well, that it's this marriage of performance and really beautiful looks that can fit that description.
It makes me think of like TMB. If you remember TMB.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really good looking iron. I think T250 is better looking than TMB ever was. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that, like, I think when concept came out, you were wowed by the looks, and then you're wowed by the performance after you got to hit it. Right. So I can see what Chuck's saying is, like, when you see 250, you're like, wow, that's a pretty nice looking iron, especially if you're in the player's distance category, right? And from the things you have to choose from, like, you look at that and go, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you go to hit it, and performance speaks for itself there.
And then you're wowed again.
Right.
That's right.
And Marni, in that iron in particular, we moved from a T200 to a T250. Why'd we do that?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things. So the construction change was one big thing, but we also changed the size of this iron, right? So this iron is actually 1.5 millimeters longer in blade length than its predecessor. And there's a couple of reasons for that, because one is because there was actually a dual move in size in 150 as well. That's 1 millimeter longer in blade length than the predecessor. And two, that added blade length also helps us keep high MOI in these irons for the reasons that I said earlier, right? More club head stability, more consistent performance.
The nice thing is he's moved bigger, and every player I've shown it to, not one has said, is this bigger? Even if they're coming from their predecessor. So, I mean, the great thing is bigger's made it better, but it's not noticeable.
Right.
So it's really good.
And the adoption rate so far on tour from 200 to 250 has been great. You know, people are going right in.
Well, a product that we probably won't see on tour, but is related to 250, is this idea of the new T250 launch spec. Marni, walk us through this one. This has been a journey, and we're very excited about where we're going.
Yeah. So this one was kind of born out of a couple things. We can start with talking about juniors, right? So we have this group of what we would call maybe emerging juniors. So they're really young. They're not at full club head speed for they're growing, right? And so this product is really looked at as something that we could feed into that market, as well as some of our women players and some of our senior players as well. Anybody who really needs height, right? So these irons are designed to help players get height, which we talked about earlier, which then results in a better descent angle, gets them stopping closer to the hole, shooting better scores.
How'd you get them more height?
So a couple things, right? We added loft to this product, right? So what a concept. Add loft to get height, right? But on top of that, this iron is based on the T250 chassis. So it has all the technologies to help you get height that are built into the 250 as well. So when you couple all that technology now with greater loft, you're going to see a new window for your 7-iron.
I mean, I think the way he talks about height, but he doesn't talk about it's height and forgiveness. When, like, I've worked with juniors in the past, and you know, they need forgiveness. So you put them in a bigger chassis, but they need launch. And so the fear there is now you put them in a bigger chassis, and then they develop this swing where they're falling back, right? And that falling back swing is them adding loft to the golf club.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that bigger chassis for many of our competitors
stronger
is very strong lofted.
Right. So this is something where when I used to fit, it was be bending 200 weak as I can, bending 350 weak, but then you start messing with your design and the offset, right? So I'm so happy for 250 launch spec. Like, it's something I don't want to tell my father-in-law, but it's the perfect father-in-law set for me because he needs the forgiveness, but he needs the height. right? You see his swing now and he just jumps backwards because he has this big set and he's trying to get it up in the air. So in reality, him jumping back is him adding loft to the golf club. When if you watch tour players, right, they're covered, they're shaft leaning. So I'm really excited for this one for a lot of players, not just juniors. I think this could be really good for us.
Yeah. And then the other piece of this iron is that working with our research team, we also looked at weight, right? Weight of these club heads. And so this iron is actually a lighter weight construction than a 250 by 6 grams in each of the heads. And you know that with these players, especially, they're not as strong. So lighter weight makes sense. It allows them to swing the club head a little bit faster, which also helps them generate height.
I'm going to get you out of here on this one. If one of your neighbors came up to you and said, all right, new irons, what's the scoop? Or what are you most excited about? What do you tell them while you're just in the driveway together?
I'm going to say that it's our best performing lineup, 1. 2, coupled with the best looking lineup.
They are pretty, Marni.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not excited about performance and looks of your irons, then I don't know what else to tell you. When I tell some players about, the better spin from that rough condition, they get pretty excited about that. For one of our tour players was kind of the nugget that pushed him over into the new iron, right? So
yeah, I think as a fitter, where my job really is that long iron. I think most players are pretty good at hitting a 7 iron up in the air, but like where I have to put my hat on and get to work is in the long iron game. And the fact that these new long irons just launch higher, it's just, again, I keep saying my job's easy. I probably got to not say this on camera, but my job's gotten easier with these long irons launching up in the air.
I can't think of a better way to end this. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Team Titleist, for sending in all these great questions. We'll be back for another Team Titleist Talks.